Johnny Duke may be, or let me put him in the category of one of the top 5 boxing names in the history of Connecticut. I would have to include Willie Pep in there and Moochie, and maybe Johnny Duke. He's in the top 3. Let's narrow it down.
If you don't mention Duke, you don't mention anyone. Johnny Duke is the legend among legends in Hartford boxing. I mean, and in Bellevue Square in particular. He was the guy. I mean, he was Mr. Boxing. He loved boxing. He lived boxing.
Back in the day, Johnny Duke had the fighters. Johnny Duke had some hell of a fighters. I mean, I used to always wonder, how did he have those good fighters?
I heard about it. Johnny Duke. Johnny Duke's got a gym, but I live in the Southern, so I know nothing about nothing.
At the age of 3, my trainer was Johnny Duke out of Bellevue Square Boys Club, and he was one of the fewest person in Bellevue Square could be over there as a white person.
He saved a lot of kids' lives, brought a lot of kids into the gym, won several New England amateur championships, had national champions. Moochie, Marlon Starling, was his guy. I mean, he's the one who brought him up through the amateur ranks and where Marlon first began to get noticed.
Every time I went to the National Golden Gloves, he was always the team coach, so he was always with me working the corner, and I spent a lot of time in Bellevue Square with him.
He is a Hartford icon. His daughter was my swim teacher at Moylan School when I was 6 years old.
Johnny Dukes was more like I'm putting you in that cage and you fight. You get hit, you hit back.
Duke is one of the most revered people and beloved people and endeared people that I know. He is one of a kind. I always say he is a social worker in his own right, without a master's degree, without any degree whatsoever, but he was a social worker. He was a great, great boxing man, knew boxing inside and out. He was a very connected guy to everybody and anybody you could think of on every side of the fence.
I meet Johnny Duke, and like I say, he was talking to me if they want to do it. And the first thing they said to me, like I told you before, he said, go in the ring, drop down, lay down. I said, that's the way you're going to look when he knock you out. Always say that.
He was a character. He had 3 daughters, no sons. And if you talk to his daughters, they'll tell you they were like his sons. That's how he, kind of dealt with them. So they're kind of like him. They talk like him and are rough and funny.
At the time when I met Duke, when we started going down his gym, he had pool tables, ping pong machines, and it was like a game room. And he had a room in here where everybody was boxing at. So, all the kids, where it was my age and the girls and stuff, they go in the back there and play. And the guys that were serious about boxing, they stayed in the front.
One of the characters of the game, perfect for boxing. Absolute legend. That's why he has the mural up by Bellevue Square.
My whole thing is I just want Duke's name to be remembered. That's the bottom line. We have the wall behind us. Just a simple plaque, put it on the wall. This is the side of the gym where the gym used to be.
Now, Johnny Duke is one of the few, maybe at one time, he was the only white guy in Bellevue Square. But he was there, every day for, 40-something years, whatever it was.
Again, one of a kind. Just absolutely incomparable, and gave of himself with the tools that he had like no other.
Duke is, like I say, he's the godfather of boxing in Hartford. Boxing is only a small part of it. People love Johnny Duke, and so when he passed away in 2006, everybody came out, and everybody's telling the stories, and most of them weren't even boxing stories.
Like I said, I'm 22 years old, so I wasn't around when he was around, but I heard, he did a lot for the community in Hartford. I heard that, he trained a lot of up-and-coming fighters that were from Hartford, and I just heard that he was just a good guy in the community.
Dude, he's like he's like a white person, he's like a black person stuck in a white person's body and everything like that. He would give you his shirt off his back. He would, if anything you need, he would do for you.
I remember there was a kid, Tommy Rivera, who was about 3 or 4 years older than me. He started boxing for Duke when he was about 12, and for whatever reason, and Duke's daughter verified this, for whatever reason, Duke had to go to the apartment, his apartment in Bellevue Square, the family, and so there's a whole bunch of kids, like a lot of kids, and he sees Tommy, he asked Tommy, where do you sleep? And Tommy showed him he sleeps on the floor, little kid, like 10 years old. So, And he said, this can't happen. So he went to Duke's daughter's house and took one of her beds, put it in his truck, and brought it to Beverly Square and gave it to Tommy.
One of the things that I told his daughters, and I even wrote this, that I knew Johnny was happy with me if I came in and he said, Mr. Sherman, Mr. Sherman. If you call me by me, he would say, Mr. Sherman. If he was not happy with something I wrote, it'd be, Mr. Kane. Oh, look who's coming in the gym, Mr. Kane. And I'd roll my eyes and go, uh-oh, something's not good.
I can remember one day being right in front of the Firestone, if you know what that is, over by the tunnel. And I saw Duke. It was wintertime, and he was on the side of the road. He was out of his truck. You know, he's like 80 at the time. And I said, man, Duke, you all right? He goes, oh, I'm just... And it was a winter coat, a small coat. And he's picking it up. And he goes, oh, I can take this home, and I'll wash it, and I'll bring it to the square. You know, one of the kids will be able to wear it.
All I know is they the godfathers, man. They set the path. They put everybody on where they need to be. And it's just a trickle effect because they started off helping out all these people in the hood. And then from there, those guys started helping us. And now we're making names for ourselves. So I feel like we are just a product of them.
Beverly Square was literally like his life. Boxing was his life. You know, his daughters told me that they had to get used to, and they became so accustomed to, where they would come home from work and two kids from Beverly Square who they never met in their lives would be sitting at the table eating dinner with them. You know, and Duke would just bring them home for no reason because the kid looked hungry.
The state of Connecticut in years gone by has had its share of top 10 rated amateur boxers in both the open and junior Olympic classes, some of whom you know and some you don't. In recent years, there have been kids like Greg Kyler, Jadion Codrington, and Sammy Vega. Sammy was #1 in the U.S. in the Junior Olympic 95-pound class in 1997, the most highly decorated Junior Olympic boxer in state history.
I met Willie Pep one time. One time with Willie Pep, it was an event they used to do it, and they came out, was talking to me. I was proud of the scene. And then I know it was Willie Pep by that time. And two people told me, that's Willie Pep, that's Willie Pep. I said, who? And he was so small. So when I met him, he said, no, my name is, no. And he told me, hey, man, you're a boxer? I said, yeah.
I had a chance to get to know Willie Pep a little bit. One thing I can tell you is that growing up, I grew up on McLean Street in Hartford, in the south end of Hartford, and a block away was McKinley Street. And for a long time, Willie Pep lived there. And everybody knew Willie. Willie had some family that lived there, and it was near the Casa Loma restaurant, which was on Weathersfield Avenue. This is in the south end of Hartford. And if Willie walked in the door, you were in the Casa Loma, which was a popular place, had great pizza. I never heard anybody call him Willie, champ. Once you're the champ, that's the thing about boxing. Once you're the champion, if you become the champion, people respect that forever.
After a few months, my trainer, he started bringing me to the gym in Hartford, which isn't there now, but it's called the Universal Life Gym. It was over in the Colt Building, over by Dutch Point. A guy by the name of Joe Burrill. He was out of Windsor Locks. He used to be a boxer, and he was a stablemate of Willie Pep. They used to train together, and so he kind of taught me kind of what the kind of style that Willie had. That was my base.
Willie Pep is basically the Jimi Hendrix of boxing. Willie Pep did things that, to this day, people can't do and want to do. The closest thing we have to Willie Pep is, of course, is Lomachenko. But Willie Pep was the Jimi Hendrix of boxing. He would hit you 10 times and then be behind you. He also, though, was true grit, fight to the death, and truly considered pound for pound, the age-old argument will be, and I've had this discussion with the greats, is pound for pound, who's the best? It'll come down to Willie Pep and Sugar Ray Robinson.
I met Willie Pep early. He's actually the first famous person I ever met was Willie Pep. and I have a picture. I still have a picture with him, and it kind of evolved into a friendship. He used to go to my fights, and I can remember one time I had a fight coming up, and I was trying to sell him on the fight. I was telling him who was on the show, and he goes, "Listen, I'm here to see you. I'm coming to see you. If you're on the show, I'm going." So he came to my fights, and when he passed away, I ended up actually being a pallbearer at his funeral.
You look at pound for pound nationally, national writers or publications talk about pound for pound, the best ever. Willie's always in the top 10. And best known for winning a round without throwing a punch. That was Willie Pep.
Like, once again, Marlon Starling for the best fighters out there, the best undefeated fighters. And you know what? I'm the champ of the whole wide world. You know what? The brother's coming to Hartford, Connecticut.
You know, again, Hartford has a long history with the actual sport of boxing. Some of the greatest fighters, like Willie Pep. Like Marlon Starling. You got the Iceman, Scully.
The Iceman!
Well, the trainers that we just mentioned here, George Cruz, Desi Clark, Johnny Duke, and Mac Buckley, they're all in the Connecticut Boxing Hall of Fame. So that tells you right there what an impact they had on the Connecticut boxing scene.
Mac Buckley was a big-time criminal lawyer, known all over the place.
But when I first started, I was a federal prosecutor. So, you know, I had a 9-to-5 job, or wasn't 9 to 5, it was probably 8 to midnight every day. But at least I had income coming in. I didn't have to go out and, you know, figure out how to live on my own. But then it became tough because when those jobs ended, the federal prosecutor jobs ended, I had to go out and make a living and keep the gym going at the same time. But we were in pretty high gear by that time.
And Mac Buckley used to be a fighter at one time.
My earliest memories that as a child were boxing in front of a bunch of men in the backyard where they'd make a boxing ring out of picnic table benches. And my father had been a fighter, my grandfather was a fighter. So it was something we had before we learned any other sport, or I did.
Johnny Duke and Desi Clark, particularly with amateurs, and then Mac with professionals, and George Cruz both.
I don't know how he did it, but in his being a lawyer, a criminal lawyer, and dealing with a lot of tough characters, being a criminal lawyer, he made time to, you know, box, show kids how to box in the inner city projects. And
it outgrew itself, it outgrew the size of the gym we had. And in terms of time and commitment, it outgrew everything I was doing, which was a lot. I mean, there was no slow days as a lawyer for me either. So I was riding 2 horses at once, and it was tough to do. The older kids, invariably, the older kids would somehow attract either their own siblings or other kids that age would see them, and one thing led to another. Kids who were living in a confined space like that, and they see other kids doing something and they want to do it too. And we were doing it. I mean, we'd live in Silver Mint and steam title up in Lowell every year, practically every year. I don't think there was a year we didn't win it.
Well, first one I had was Johnny Duke. He was part of my life. Then when Duke passed away, Scully brought me to the next level that Duke did it. But, you know, I owed it to both of them because, like I said, Scully is a good guy.
John Datro, who was an old school coach at Universal Life where I started. You had Walter Brown, who was at Stowe Village. You have Mac Buckley.
Mac Buckley was more of a hit and don't get hit type of guy. See, Johnny Dukes was the rumbling, what was he, Irish, I believe, Italian, I believe he was. He wanted to rumble, but Mac Buckley taught us, he was a lawyer, he was smart. He wanted us to hit and not get hit, so Mac taught us how to bob, weave, and put us through everything. Dukes threw you in there to see if you could fight with heart, but Mac Buckley taught you a lot of skills.
No, I don't remember specifically seeing him for the first time, but that's a story that was repeated dozens of times over the time that I was in that building.
And from the skills that he taught me, and by me training with grown men, by the time I got to the tournaments to fight kids that was my age, it was all over. They didn't have a chance. And so I already had the heart and I had the power. All I need to do was learn some skills.
Mike was an asset in the sense that you don't have many kids, younger, particularly under 16, 17, 18, that can box from either side of the plate. Mike can fight as an orthodox fighter leading with his left hand, or he can switch and do equally well boxing out of a southpaw stance, which he really is. I believe he's left-handed, but you can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're correct. Show you how smart he is. I fought in the tournament. I threw a jab, knocked the guy out. Went upstairs, Mac grabbed the ink pen, threw it to me, and I caught it with my right hand. And Mac said, "Stupid guy." He was referring to my other coach because I was supposed to be fighting orthodox, and I was southpaw. But he told me, he said, "You've been fighting that way too long. It's too late to change you. I'll just teach you how to fight the other way." He caught on just like that.
Mac was a good trainer for me. I mean, shoot, he taught me how to fight. Coach, trainer, confidant.
A great psychologist, ethnologist from England did a thesis on the social analysis of amateur boxing. And he based it on 3 gyms, one in Cuba, one in Belfast, and Mac Buckley's gym.
Mac used to talk to me about going to college. He said, "I want you to go to school. I want you to, get your education and so forth." I was gung-ho for that. Yeah, man. Put me in a place, put me in school. I wanted to, get a college degree. This whole boxing renaissance in the 80s and stuff like that, it would never have happened if it wasn't for those two. Meaning Mac Buckley and then Moochie being the catalyst to jump as far as he did up in the game.
George Cruz was actually the trainer for Marlon when he won the world title. So that might be a forgotten note in history, but it was George who was his trainer at that time when Marlon beat Mark Breland to win the world title.
Desi Clark was a good guy. He was a church-going guy, He always tell you about God, and he always wanna always tell you how to pray, before a fight or something, and always look to God. He was a very godly man. He'll come get you, man, at 5 o'clock in the morning. He'll take you running. After he take you running, take you somewhere, get you some breakfast, take you home. Then he meet you at gym at night, and you go training. He train you like you in some kind of training camp or something, He's a real cool dude, man. I miss Desi.
Hartford wasn't the only city in Connecticut with boxing talent. As far back as the 1940s with boxing legend Willie Pep, and in the 1950s, Connecticut had 2-time national heavyweight champion Jimmy Blythe. There was also Lenny Gargliano, the flashy Italian southpaw from Stamford, and a kid with a ton of potential from Bridgeport, Joey Negron.
Well, the most well-known would be Marlon Starling. I covered a bulk of his career. He was the young guy that was on the rise. He had an investor group that included the likes of Earl the Pearl Monroe, who was a legendary basketball player in the late 60s, early 70s, mid-70s, Hall of Famer. He was one of the original investors in the Starling investor group. And so we decided that this kid looked like he might be going places. And the entire gym, the amateur gym at that time, run by Johnny Duke in Bellevue Square, had a lot of promising fighters that went on to do well. Tyrone Booz would be another name. Troy Wortham would be another name. They were kind of worked out together and worked in the same gym coming up, and all established professional careers, and all of them had pretty good professional careers.
Any corner of Hartford that you went to was champions. Not only was it champions, but I believe the crime stayed down lower because there was so many boxing gyms. There was so many guys in the gyms that was doing well and moving up, and they wanted to continue doing well. They stayed up out of the streets.
When I started, there was probably 60. We were a powerhouse. We were the kings of New England. Marlon Starling, you had Troy Wortham, Kuda Leaks, Tyrone Booz. I mean, you had some good up-and-coming and solid level fighters.
I've had the privilege and the honor of refereeing some of the greatest fighters in the world in championship bouts and otherwise. And I can tell you that Milton Kuda Leaks is probably the most gifted, pure boxer I have ever met, seen, or sparred with, worked with, or whatever.
By the time I was in the 5th grade, you know, I was walking around telling everybody I'm boxing now, and then I found Johnny Duke at the same time. You know, my brothers in them, Mark Hightower, Levi Gillespie. They said, yeah, we're going to start fighting now.
I remember Mucci, I remember Chocolate, Scully, Angel. A lot of fighters started from that basement.
Mayweather called his place the dungeon. Nah, TNT, that's not the gym. His gym not a dungeon.
So when I went to the gym, the first day, I fell in love. I was hooked. It was like a fish to water. You know, I said, this is it. I'm going to do this. Yes, this is what I want to do. And my mind was made up.
And like I told you, it was so small, it was so big. The heater was our pies. So we got probably 3 bags.
If you ask anybody, Duke, they tell you the gym that we was in, Johnny Duke gym, is the dungeon. Cause why? It's hot down there. It's hot, no heat, no nothing, no windows, and the basement.
Schoolboy Troy Wortham.
Okay, Schoolboy Troy Wortham, the guy who got the education.
One of the reporters gave me that name. I think it was Terry Rice. It just one time, you know, I was fighting at the Civic Center, and he said, wham, bam, that Schoolboy can jam. That was like the art, that was the heading that somebody wrote. And the name Schoolboy stuck with me.
But also a great fighter who won the ESPN tournament.
1985.
Right.
But listen to this. The University of Hartford student athlete, Troy Wortham, 21 years old, is undefeated in 25 bouts. Qualitative analysis.
And then he lost the decision to Mount Breland.
When Breland was a monster.
Right,
Breland wasn't losing at that time. It wasn't in the cards for Mark to lose. But Hartford had a strong, when I came up, there was 4 gyms, all of them packed, welterweights, just in Hartford.
I heard a lot about, you know, past boxers, and, you know, I'm a type of guy, I like to do my research. So, you know, I look up a lot of old boxers, even boxers that are not from here.
It was a serious upbringing up in the 80s. Boxing was flowing. I mean, Mucci was one of the main attractions, and I was an attraction.
Kelvin D. Anderson was a fast-moving and flashy U.S. team member and a guy that is still often talked about with great respect by guys that knew him well, like Troy Wortham and Marlon Starling. He won the 1979 National Sports Festival in the heavyweight class. Sadly, Kelvin perished in the 1980 plane crash that took the lives of the entire national boxing team.
The night that Kelvin Anderson died, the morning he died in a Polish airplane crash, we did a live interview with Boston Papers and Boston TV because they were all fighting that night.
And that was maybe my first year boxing with Mac. And I called Mac on the phone. I said, Mac, Kelvin just died. He said, yeah. I said, well, we got the championship today. Is we gonna fight? He said, yeah, we're gonna fight. We're gonna dedicate it to Kelvin. And I know it was me, Luis Ortiz, and Pito. We dedicated our fights to Kelvin. We all won. And then later on, we went to his funeral. We all wore our championship jackets to the funeral to dedicate it to him. It was good.
You know, it's the tale of 2 cities. Hartford's no different. Here's in the 1970s, the Foster Heights section of Hartford was an upper middle class neighborhood made up of all the politicians, and we had this great, fantastic, very athletic, great, you know, middle class neighborhood. Then there's New Britain Avenue. Then there's Charter Oak Terrace, a war zone, one of the oldest housing projects in the entire country, highest infant mortality rate, highest murder rate, highest suicide rate. Just a war zone for somebody to grow up in. At one point in the early 90s, there was still 4 or 5 gyms in Hartford, you know, or 4 gyms. Then for various political funding and other reasons, it got cut back.
It was a lot of fun because you go to school, half of the guys in school, you know, some of them boxing from one gym or another, so you got to meet people living in different projects and neighborhoods, so you weren't always afraid to go somewhere because somebody always knew you. You know, and then I was always like a loner type of guy. I would go places alone, but anywhere I went, I was well respected because of all the wins and the newspaper articles, and on the news, people knew me. So I never really had too much trouble, but it was a lot of gyms in almost every project. But when they took all the projects down, then they built the San Juan Center, and most of the gyms got combined. And by that time, you know, I was fading out of the scene.
So Belgrade Square and San Juan Sports Center came together as one team.
Shortly after 78, you had Mac Buckley's gym, which was probably one of the greatest gyms in the history of Hartford, Connecticut, with Marlon Starling, Troy Wortham, Tyrone Booz. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on.
Boxing's always been a part of my life. Some of the inspirations I have throughout, like, the Hartford area, you know, Willie Pep, of course. You had Marlon Starling. You had a lot of people coming out of that, the Charter Oak kind of like Bellevue Square kind of boxing, Hector Rosario, John Scully, you know, Julio Costa. But boxing's strong in Hartford.
Growing up, I was always like into fighting and stuff. I used to get in trouble a lot for fighting. So I mean, it was kind of recommended when I went to, I had a court date, and so they kind of recommended me. But once I went inside the gym, it's like I fell in love, and I was at the age of 15.
I started at an early age. And I never knew it all these years, but it was because of bullying. And I remember once I came in the house crying. My mother said I had gotten into a tiff with somebody, came in the house crying. My mother said, boy, you come in the house crying again? I'm going to whoop your tail. And I'm like, okay. So I started thinking, what am I going to do? I said, because I'm not a punk. I'm not a punk by any means.
The reason I started boxing, actually, my mom used to date a boxer named Julian Solis. At that time, Hartford was rated in the top 10 of crime, gangs, drugs.
These guys was a bunch of Sugar Rays and Muhammad Ali's. They had their hands up, fast combinations, and they always made me nervous when they would come up into the tournaments. I was like, boy, I hope them guys are not in my weight class, you know what I'm saying?
Michael Bell, knock him out, Bell.
I was like his big brother, and he was an excellent fighter, excellent southpaw, can punch.
I always say this about Michael. Although I've boxed almost 1,000 people,
Right.
sparred and fought.
Right.
Probably over 1,000.
Right.
Michael had one of the smoothest releases. Like when he let his hands go, it was like like a machine.
Right.
You hit a button and they go, okay, throw 8 punches.
Right.
Michael had fluidity.
We saw a big difference of involvement, kids getting involved in the boxing when they started knocking down the projects. And again, they started knocking down the projects, closing down the projects. I think the early 2000s, you know, but in the 90s, it was, again, I used to fight all the time.
We were in Charter Oak Terrace for 10, 12 years. And then basically what happened was the gentrification of the project. So we created this great stellar program with over 74 amateur champions, 6 state championship teams, Central boxed out of there. We had some All-Americans. We were in the paper. We were in Ring Magazine in 1995 as this great program. But the whole movement to gentrify projects happened, and they steamrolled Johnny Duke's gym, and off went Bellevue Square, and they threatened to do the same thing with Charter Oak, and ultimately did that. And while they promised us a new gym and a new place, that never happened.
You know, Charter Oak Boxing Academy, they had the boxing club at the projects, I call them, you know.
The Charter Oak Center, that gym was packed every day, man. So, you know, you have plenty of work all day, every day, you know. And I used to get out of high school and just drive over here because just to get that great work. It was like a huge family.
Mm-hmm. And the only one that was in the middle, neutral, I say, it was the San Juan Sports Center. And the reason there were more boxers, because at that time, the projects, I mean, Bellevue Square, they had the gym right in the projects, Bellevue Square.
Stop. Yeah, dance for me.
So I went to the gym, in Bellevue Square because it was in the basement of the building I lived in. All I had to do was walk downstairs and the gym was there. Because I was a little troublemaker kid, I wasn't really welcome in the gym. But he told me if I act right, I could stay. So he let me stay. Johnny Dukes let me stay. I remember about 3 weeks later, I seen some young kids come back with the silver mitten jackets and trophies, and I was like, wow, I want to do that. Walk the weights, I believe I fought all of them. And I beat them all except for one. I fought Kuda Leaks.
Kuda Leaks.
Yes.
Talent-wise, I've been in boxing 32 years. Kuda Leaks, one of the most talented ever. Talent up there with like Roy Jones.
And can punch.
Kuda Leaks could punch.
Can punch.
But he
okay.
fight, woo!
Right.
Woo!
And laugh at you.
Right. Oh,
and laugh at you.
Yeah.
Okay.
When I started boxing, I mean, what really caught my interest though was I was about 6 years old. And I saw Muhammad Ali fighting, and you know, I didn't know. I just heard everybody say Muhammad Ali and just saw the guy fighting, man.
I fought Kuda Leaks, dropped me in the first round twice. I got back up, I fought, and in the second round, I dropped him twice, but he didn't be able to get up in the second round. I fought his brother, Jeffrey Leaks. Jeffrey Leaks did the same thing. They kept their hands low, and so when they threw it, it just caught me in the solar plex. It wasn't like it was a headshot or nothing. And just knocked the wind out of me.
I actually got an opportunity to train with a lot of Hartford boxers like Mike Oliver, Marlon Starling, with Kuda Leaks. I mean, a lot of people, John Scully.
It was interesting how I met John Scully, the man, the Iceman.
I'm here with my show, and I'm introducing the champion. He's the new champion. He just won the title a couple minutes ago in there. So his name's Sammy. Sammy, welcome to the show.
Won the national, 7-time national champion, and but the most memorial title was the 1997 National Junior Olympic. At that time was only 2. At the time that won the Junior Olympics, it was Marlon Starling, the Magic Man, and myself.
Gaspar Ortega, I believe, was in the first class of the Connecticut Boxing Hall of Fame with Willie Pep, Marlon Starling, Bat Battolino, Kid Gavlin, another great. These are legendary fighters in the grand scheme of all world boxing. These guys were Iron Men. These guys were the real men. These were the guys in the 50s that would fight, 12 times a year.
Throw them hands up. All I hear is talking about your bands up. Man up. Brother, you ain't shit without your hammer. Damn, bro, when your gun ain't around, you got no answers. The other day, you just went live frontin' on camera. Make Hartford great again, I swear. We could bring it back to Bellevue Square if you wanna take it there. Mural on a brick at Bellevue be the proof. Cussing up a storm in the gym like Johnny Duke. Why they started? Who say they the king of Hartford? I beg your pardon. When I'm a champion like Marlon Starling. M-A-G-I-C. Man, you're holding your phone trying to find me like Shazam. I leave eyes swollen, nose bloody. Word to Greg Kyler. They need Iceman like John Scully. I got the city with me, so who shall I fear? Peace to Johnny Duke, I'm live in the square. Without a mill in the purse, I still do it for the city. That's why I get the loving and real hitters is with me. This one gon' hit you hard like the brothers in BSQ. It's like I'm cuffing the cloth of the legend Johnny Duke. Always show respect for the ones that came before you. The blueprint to make Hartford great, I lay it for you. And open up the door and let real music get heard. Peace to Johnny Duke, I'm live in the square. Boozy, running around thinking it's Gucci. Heard they have footwork like Giulio Gallucci. Curve 'em, schooling that boy like Troy Wortham. It ain't a thing when I come in superb herb. And these OGs gave you a shot, you got sillier. They put an 8-ball in your pocket like a billiard. Now you wanna block for props, but they ain't feeling ya. My loud hit hard like Stevie Hillier. I'm Jimmy Blight, here's fight night. So let's start this. Come on now, bring a mic, fella, I'm about to Marcus. Starts it's like Pookie Agar, my hands awesome. You had to scoop them up in the truck like Mr. Clark did. We all scream for ice cream. Give me Anthony Moore. It's an Eddie Reynolds, I give you that hardcore. Swift as Norman and Leon Jennings, I make you hit the floor. I'm Tyrone Booz, Robert Snipe, who won the war? Without a mill in the purse, I still do it for the city. That's why I get the loving and real hitters is with me. This one gon' hit you hard like the brothers in BSQ. It's like I'm cuffing the cloth of the legend Johnny Duke. Always show respect for the ones that came before you. The blueprint to make Hartford great, I lay it for you. And open up the door and let real music get heard. Peace to Johnny Duke, I'm live in the square.
Tyrone Booz, who boxed for me since he was in 6th grade, the youngest guy ever sent to the prison for certain types of offenses, but he was so young they had to get a special ruling to keep him in prison. Tyrone Booz came out of prison, learned how to box better in prison, then came out, boxed. He fought dozens of fights where he got robbed, either the weight was wrong or the judging was wrong or he was in the other guy's backyard. But eventually, he fights a guy named Derek Ingleton in London, England. And he knocks Ingleton, who was 51-0 as a pro. He's a light heavyweight champion of the world. Booz knocks him down 5 times and becomes, in the twilight of his career, becomes the light heavyweight champion of the world. The past is his production, and, you know, how you did, what it did for you and what you did for him.
The buzz was big because we were, in Connecticut, we were kind of starved for champions. UConn basketball at that time was in its infancy in the Big East, and they were kind of at the bottom. The Hartford Whalers had good seasons here and there, but they still never reached the championship level. So I think we as a state were hungry for someone that could be a champion and maybe a world champion. And so Marlon was very popular as far as media coverage, and he kept winning. And his trainer / manager at the time, F. Mac Buckley, was kind of a swashbuckler and kind of a guy that knew how to play the media.
F. Mac Buckley was a prominent federal prosecutor and major figure in Connecticut boxing. He defended mobsters, ran for Congress, and managed professional boxers. In the 1980s, Mac trained and managed 2 champions, Marlon Starling and Tyrone Booz. He also trained and managed Troy Schoolboy Wortham and 5 other fighters who have been inducted into the Connecticut Boxing Hall of Fame. Mac was the flamboyant manager of former welterweight champion Marlon Moochie Starling. They made a dynamic team, never a dull moment, and always surrounded by controversy. In 2004, Buckley and Wortham joined together to create Championship Rounds, Boxing and Books. Through the program, they trained amateur boxers and stressed the importance of education. Now retired and living a quiet life in rural Connecticut with his wife, Mac has donated his time and most of his life to boxing in Connecticut. He ran a succession of gyms in Hartford, Connecticut, and is counted by many in the sport as boxing's strongest advocate in Connecticut over the past half-century.
It was hard coming up to make sure people would use your fighters. If your fighters were good and they were knocking everybody out, you had to have a venue, a place to come where your own fans could be built up. And I don't think anybody will ever do again or has done since what we did in Hartford and Bucci and Suriata, the Starks and Bucci, Mike Bell, Tyrone Booz, John Scully. I mean, you know, they were boxing over a period of, say, 20 years anyway.
They called themselves the Magic Show, and that kind of caught on. And when you keep winning, everybody loves a winner, and that was a key for him.
And in the red corner, from Hartford, Connecticut, undefeated in 23 bouts, he is the WBA welterweight champion of the world, Marlon Magic Man.
You know, Moochie used to live in Berry Square. I was living in 68. Moochie was living in the next building over and everything like that. So, you know, he grew up as a project boy like I did, and Moochie found his way out the project by winning the world title.
Moochie fought Mark Breland, and it was in Columbia, South Carolina. There was a pre-fight press conference. There usually is. If there's a fight on, if the fight's on Saturday, which it was, there'll be a big press conference Wednesday or Thursday. So at the press conference, Breland gets up and speaks first, and then he sits down. And Moochie gets up, he comes to the podium, comes to the microphone, and the first thing he says is, he's trying to take food out of my refrigerator. Then he sits down. That was classic Moochie.
He's not like other people that, you know, you make it big, you leave where you come from. No, Moochie, the type of person is to come back to the community and help out. Like this Sam, Scully, and John Collins, them 3 guys right there, they're the most respectful guy in Connecticut.
he's hurting Marlon Starling more than I think he actually is. There's no question his punches have had some effect. This is the 11th round, the first time Mark Breland has ever been in the 11th round, and he's in trouble right now.
He is being caught.
He has been hit with power punches about 6, and he's hurt. And
there it is. He is down with 2 minutes. 2 minutes to go in the 11th round. As a pro, it's his first time knocked down. And he's is not going to make it. He has lost his championship. Starling wins it. After a minute and 10 seconds with the count, there's a guy that since 1979 has wanted the title, and he has gotten it.
The wonderful thing about that fight is he changed his style a little bit to win. Because Mucci was all about winning. And he knew he'd have to take some punishment to get to Mark Breland. Because Mark Breland was a superb boxer as well. Mucci was a superb boxer. Mucci always said, you know, a lot of boxers say it, and he's one of them, but he would say it often. The game's about hitting and not getting hit. And he was one of the best defensive fighters in that welterweight era, without question. There was a sports writer named Mike Katz. He worked for the Daily News, I believe, at the time, or one of the New York papers, and he was there covering the fight. And the night before, you know, the writers get together to maybe pound down a couple and talk. And I'll never forget Mike Katz saying, he goes, Mark Breland is the next Sugar Ray Robinson. He's Sugar Ray Robinson. That's basically saying Marlon Starling has no chance to win the fight.
Unbelievable, Marlon. Did you, in your heart of hearts, believe that you could come up with that kind of result?
I know that I was going to get him in the late rounds. I believe I was behind on all kinds, but you know what? I was digging low. I was talking to him. He was breathing from probably the 6th round on. The man, his jab is a little more potent than I thought it was. But like once again, Marlon Starling for the best fighters out there, the best undefeated fighters. And you know what? I'm the champ of the whole wide world.
Marlon, who we're blessed to have here at Kobe as a coach, unequivocally and historically is considered one of the greatest defensive fighters of all time. What people don't really give him credit for is he was a phenomenal offensive fighter as well. I mean, he could put together combinations as good as Sugar Ray Leonard, but with even more power.
Which is the 2-time welterweight champion. He won the belt, he won the WBA, and he won the WBC.
Magic Man. What I love so much about Magic Man, whenever he was fighting, this guy had a bolo, man, that'll knock you to the moon. All of a sudden, he do some crazy movement, come on right there and hit you, man, and then you know you just fall. Boom. The pressure that he put on you, if you got any boxing skills, he will bring them out of you. If it don't come at you, you going down. You're going to get hurt. As simple as that.
Pure boxer, beautiful boxer, and, you know, Hall of Fame class of #1. You're looking at Willie Pep, Marlon Starling. When you talk Hartford boxing, Marlon, you know, is it along with Willie Pep and some other greats like Bat Battolino and Gaspar Ortega.
I actually got a good relationship with Mucci. Like, you know, he hits me up sometimes on Facebook, and like I said, I trained with him. You know, he trained me for a little short time. He was that man, you know, he was the Magic Man, you know.
He can't get away from that uppercut of Starling.
No, he can't, and his legs are not under him, Gil. He is still in big trouble. Throwing punches gamely, but his eyes are not on the target.
When you spar with Starlings, you always learn something. You come up with a better slip or a better block, some kind of defense, because the boy hit you so hard, you ain't going to want that punch no more.
And Morgan wobbling on the rope for right hand, and that's it. Vincent Rainoni has stopped the fight.
It feels good, you know, when you got somebody from the same place as you from, you know, Hartford, and he was the last world champion that we had. So it's like when I was in the gym with him, training with him, he always used to encourage me.
It was right before I graduated from high school that I had my first professional fight, but they never recorded it. I went to the prison and fought one of the inmates. So I get into this ring, and this big cockstrong guy, like he's been pumping iron like crazy, gets into the ring. So I got in the ring, and I'm fighting this guy. By after round 1, the guy was huffing and puffing. He couldn't even make the second he couldn't even get past the second round, so I ended up
booed by all of his cellmates.
So he ended up running out of gas, and I won. That was my first professional fight.
It's still the same, but like once we take off the headgear, it's a wrap.
To Al Sega's credit, though, Tom. And a right hand by Oliver. Right hook as he's fading away.
When you take off the headgear, it's a new world. Like, you kind of see more better, but now you have less protection.
And then the second, more of the same. Caught him with that two-punch combination coming in.
Then he just rips away with another 25 punches.
When I look at myself, I'm like, that's me. Like, I'm a very calm person. I'm very quiet to myself. I'm an introvert.
Oh, it was different. I was nervous. Everything was like pumping. Everything was like real nervous. But it was different as a amateur because it's different step. You know, the people screaming harder than amateur. So I was kind of nervous too.
My first televised fight was in Atlantic City, 1989, and here I am. I mean, Al Bernstein is ringside, and I'm in a casino in Atlantic City, and the lights and the cameras, and it was surreal.
Scully, a 28-year-old from Hartford, Connecticut, came in here with a 35-4 record. Has been nibbling around the fringes of contention. Has never gotten that one win to put him over the top. He thinks tonight might be it, and let's say this: he came in here prepared.
Every single fight, starting from the first fight to my last fight, every single fight, you get butterflies. If you don't get butterflies, that means you're gonna get hurt. But after a few seconds, it goes away.
Pick him up.
Well, Jesse, best of luck the rest of the night.
We're gonna go all the way, baby.
All right, Jesse Reed, boy, he is a great guy to talk with, and
It hits me harder after the fact when I'm actually looking at myself on TV. And when I'm in the moment, I'm ready to go. I'm throwing my jab, I'm moving my head, I'm doing everything I got to do to stick to the game plan. And I don't think about none of that until after the word. I go on YouTube and see, or I'll go on TV and watch over the fight, and I hear the commentators, I hear the crowd, I'm looking at what I'm doing. That's where I'm starting to get the goosebumps. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's me? I can't believe this. Like, that's crazy. But it's an unreal feeling.
He's going to put his title on the line against middleweight champion Canelo Alvarez on November 2nd.
Guys, I heard how they were scared the first time. I was anxious, but I was anxious to get in the ring and really demonstrate my technique, all that work that I've been doing, as a kid. The first person I called was like my mom and my sister, and they kind of spread it out, And at that time, there wasn't like the social media was not as huge as now.
It was like a kid who loves movies, all of a sudden finding himself in a movie. I'm in the movie. I'm not watching a movie. I'm in the movie, and it was surreal. But that's where I felt I belonged. I always knew from my first day in the gym. I knew I was going to be a boxer. I knew it, period. And Duke was with me for most of those early fights. Mac Buckley and Johnny Duke were in the corner.
Losing it.
Well, Scully getting the edge in punches, landed that round, but again, look at Nunn for the third round in a row.
I was actually a fan of Michael Nunn. I used to watch him on TV, and, I trained extremely hard. It was a good fight. A lot of people to this day thought I won.
When I watched that fight, I never was so prouder than Scully than ever. I texted him. I said, Scully, man, I just watched that Mike Nunn fight, man. That was you.
In the amateurs, you use 10-ounce gloves. In pros, you use 8-ounce gloves. So, when you get the first hit, you're like, whoa.
By the time I got to 7th grade, my hands were lethal weapons. I was kicking butt all around.
Somebody said I should go do a story about this kid. He trains with a trainer. The trainer's name was Joe Burrill, who has since passed away. And he trained at Windsor Locks Town Hall. Windsor Locks is in our coverage area. So I went up to Windsor Locks Town Hall, just watched this guy. He's 14 years old, John. Okay, he's 14. I did a story on him because it was unusual. Even then he seemed dedicated. His father was his biggest promoter.
He got good different. John Scott got great different. To hit him, it was hard. And then he was talking to me Why? Can I put it there? I said, I try, but I can't. And he was laughing at me. I was short. I was starting pro. He was laughing at me because I couldn't touch him.
And I went to North Carolina to see him, which was unusual to go watch and for us to spend that money. But Mac Buckley kind of convinced our editors that he should go see John fight here because he's going to win this title. And he won that title. And a lot of people were interested in signing him. He ended up signing with Mac Buckley.
At the beginning, I didn't like Scully. He was my enemy. And the reason why, because he had a kid named Dwayne Harrison.
My boy Dwayne scored a knockout over the 10-0 kid. Now he's 10-1.
That's good.
What are we? May of '98. Remember this for life.
Let me see Dwayne's face. Come here, Dwayne. Let me see your face, man.
He was like my weight class, and we used to spar a lot. First fight at 55 pounds, guess who was my opponent? Dwayne Harrison.
I met a kid in Bellevue Square. He was 4 years old at the time, Dwayne Harrison. I started training a kid named Orlando Cardona. And then I added Sammy Vega and then Greg Kyler.
The victim of this morning's shooting was an up-and-coming talent in the boxing sport. NBC 30's Ken Llewellyn continues our team coverage with more on the life of this young athlete.
He had a lot of potential, just as, not just in boxing, but, in life.
At the age of 23, Greg Kyler had already made his mark on the world. He was a boxing prospect, one of the best in Connecticut, and ranked as high as 8th in the nation among amateur flyweights.
Was an engaging, fun-loving, likable young guy who will be sorely missed.
My heart went numb. I mean, like I said, I grew up with a kid, and he used to stay over my house. It's sad that one of the kids is not here and gone. So.
Kyler's friends tell us he was part of a boxing family in Hartford that crossed racial lines. He lived on Vine Street, working out regularly at the San Juan Center gym. The man on the left is Kyler's trainer and longtime friend, John Scully. Just last week, Scully invited his protege to a boxing event in Las Vegas.
He was telling me, he said, give me a ticket and I'll pay you back. And he said, I need a vacation. And that was his last words to me.
We had the 5 of us, so we called ourselves the 5-Star Bomb Squad.
We started becoming friends. We started hanging out. He started taking not only me, but other kids in the gym, bowling. First time I went bowling, it was because John Scully, he took me, to the movies. Again, I think the first time I've been to the movies, it was with him, First time I went to a boxing match, a real boxing match, it was with John Scully. So at that time, his crew was Triple Impact. It was Dwayne Harrison, Orlando Cordova, and himself. And we clicked, that group. Orlando, Dwayne, Greg, became brothers.
And we used to travel. I mean, I took these guys to Disney World. I took them to Las Vegas. We went to Kansas City. We went to Canada. We fought all over. We did everything together. I mean, matter of fact, the day after I fought Michael Nunn, that night we stayed in the hotel at Foxwoods, and the next morning we're in the swimming pool and hanging out the morning after the fights.
Lawrence Claybay was the U.S. Olympic team captain in 1996, the last in a long line of solid Connecticut heavyweights over the years. Blythe, Herbie Cox, Harold Rice, Kelvin D. Anderson, Earl Terminator Anderson, and then Claybay all made names for themselves as big men from Hartford that could fight.
Claybay, it shouldn't have turned into this kind of boxing match. It should have been a boxing match just like he's doing now, not a punching exhibition as he's allowed himself to let it turn.
This is an area where Claybay can win the fight.
Mike Oliver was maybe the most experienced Connecticut amateur ever in terms of sheer number of bouts and time invested. He was in the gym literally since he was 2 years old. He began boxing at the Bellevue Square Boys Club in Hartford as a tyke, and by the time he was 20 years old, it was estimated that he had had about 300 amateur bouts.
I've been around the world and everything with amateur and everything like that. I had like over 300 amateur fights. Went to several nationals and everything like that. I owe it all to Duke because he the one changed my life around. The green belt that I had, that you see with Orlando and them in, I gave it to Duke's daughter.
Boxing saved me, saved my life. Boxing made made the person who I am today, and not only because the boxing skills, but the people surrounded, the people I met through the boxing program.
Boxing in my life, man, it really made me a better person, you know. I used to want to fight all the time, you know, stayed in trouble. A couple of times I did fight on the street, and what I did do, I damaged my hands. Damage in my hands, then it messed me up for my fights. That's another thing that really stopped me from the streets, because then I realized the streets only damage me. It brings me no good.
Nothing makes me feel better than being in the gym, and, you know, letting out my anger, letting out, you know, my frustration, letting out my problems, and, you know, just clear my mind sometimes. When I'm at the gym, you know, I just feel down.
When you're younger, you're trying to build your character and, you know, trying to become your own person. And that creates fear, man. You create fear in yourself, and that's why a lot of people mess up, is out of fear.
I mean, it has so much benefits. The pros to me, boxing just kept going on and on. Besides, like, you know, keeping me out of the street, keeping me focused, you know, trying to stay away from toxic things that, you know, Hartford has to offer. But, you know, I was just one with an amazing amount of energy, and only boxing was able to, like, really burn some of that energy off of me.
Well, boxing mean a lot. You know, in the state of Connecticut, boxing mean a lot. It was, back then we had a whole bunch of gyms.
It gave me a lot of discipline. For one, because I couldn't go into the Belgrave Square Club unless I started behaving, it gave me some discipline. It taught me how to behave around people and be well. You know what I'm saying? You know, if I wanted to be a part of something that was good, then I had to be good myself.
It made me strong where I was weak. Broke me down where I thought I was too strong, and it made me myself, you know.
Whatever you love to do, just do it, because, you know, you only get one life.
I think Connecticut has a lot of good fighters, but, you know, they just have to know that they're good and, you know, stay away from all the negative stuff. And it's pretty easy to get tied up in that.
I've seen people, you know, in the streets that are encouraging people to do the wrong things.
I just thank God for boxing, man. You know, boxing, even to this day, I still have a great passion for boxing.
I believe boxing definitely got me out of the track of going a whole nother way, because I was dangerous out there. And I was real dangerous until I got caught up in the sport.
It kept me focused, and it made me who I am today, even though that I did not turn professional as a boxer, but I did turn professional in life. Because boxing not only taught me how to use my hands, and I was pretty good using my hands. I was ranked #1 at one point. I represented the United States twice with USA Boxing.
We stayed in places where we were safe, we weren't getting in trouble, and we stayed off the streets. When they took a lot of the gyms out of Hartford, the crime did go up a little bit more, because half of the guys that would have been in the gym doing something positive, they're out there in the streets of Hartford where there's nothing to do, and they're doing whatever they can do.
You know, I can go out there and go to some of the gyms and look at some of the trainers or some of the managers, quote, and say, you know, this one, I don't trust that guy right there, or I don't trust him, or this guy looks like he's a snake, or, you know, you got guys out there who are willing to take you and just turn you pro, just to see what type of money they can get and make off you. And the best gym that's out there today, and I'll say this on the record, it's the gym that Johnny Callis runs.
We've been around for 31 years, and our primary mission is to, yes, make amateur champions in the ring, which we've captured well over 100 titles, but first and foremost, champions of life.
Right now I'm at Coba. You know, this is my home base. I help train anybody in the gym who needs help.
We're probably the only team in the country or program in the country that combined higher education, collegiate fighters with inner city kids, which ends up being a trademark to this day, 30 years later, of the Charter Oak Boxing Academy. We have a body and soul fitness program, which is, you know, not competitive boxing, but doing the boxing workout as well. So we have a built-in mentor program. We have a built-in academic tutorial program. We do life skills trainings with our kids, drug, gang prevention. We have a huge, outward bound partnership with a group called Outside Perspectives. It's an adventure-based learning program. So again, we really do all of that at Coba to create a successful young person. We want to keep our kids alive. off the street, out of gangs, off drugs, in school, and moving to some form of higher education so they can reach their full potential and then ultimately give back.
Walking up in here right now, if we had this back then, I don't know too much about the training here because I haven't been here, but what's going on now seems to be awesome.
But it's not just a program for boxing. No, we're not really trying to make champions in the ring. So, it's a workout. Because boxing, like right now, we're not trying to build pros in this gym. This gym is just to get in shape.
It took us 10 years to get back into Hartford. I spoke to everybody, churches, politicians, city government, everybody you could think of. Now we're talking, back 10 years ago. Went to every possible place you could imagine that could have looked, or should have looked, or would have looked like a gym, or could have started, and said, listen, Charter Oak Boxing Academy, we have a track record, we're self-sufficient, all we need is 1,000 square feet. And guess what? No one could give us 1,000 square feet. But now that we're back, we are getting the support that we deserve. Mayor Bronin is phenomenal. Hartford Foundation is phenomenal. Various foundations, nonprofits, charitable organizations support COBA hugely, which is great.
I just want to do what I love. Hopefully, in 5-10 years, I'm still willing and able to box. So, I just want to do what I love. And I feel like my skills should just bring me to that level if I'm still doing it in 5 or 10 years.
I think it's real good. We got kids coming up to us, like, beyond boxing, but really coming up to us like, yo, I got an A on my test today. I'm like, yo, that's awesome. Like, yo, it ain't just winning in the ring. You got to win outside the ring, too. So the Hartford boxing is definitely making a huge impact on the youth. Some kids, they come in here so mean and so, like, angry, and then they get in there, they spar, and they get humbled up real quick. And then from there, you start seeing kids coming in, shaking everybody's hands, looking them in their eyes, talking to them respectfully. We got people that we try to make sure they're getting their homework done and stuff like that.
It's a police program for the kids, trying to bring the kids out of the street and bring them to the gym, trying to do something for themselves. So my main factor is to help the kids to do something. And I got a couple of kids, they're real good. I got girls, I got boys. Trying to get them, make sure to do something for themselves. Plus, I help them. I'm like a role model to the kids. Try to guide them for the right track to the kids. Plus, the police help me a lot of things with the stuff. Try to guide the kids. Whatever problem I got with the kids, the police there for me. Like help them, even monetary or clothes. The police help them too. 1055 Broad Street, second floor. Encourage the kids to come over here and enjoy ourselves.
Kids get put into the pros way too soon, and as a professional referee, I would say about 60% of boxers that go into boxing probably do it too soon or shouldn't be professional boxers whatsoever.
I wish that boxing could be more of a cleaner sport. Basketball players can't turn pro unless they graduate from high school, go to college, and get drafted. I wish boxing was like that.
Boxing over the last 10, 12 years has been very quiet, realistically. I mean, especially compared to what it was and compared to other states and cities. It's been very quiet. It's been in a lull.
You came to me and said, we've got 50 people here. We want to put together, a 10-year program to do exactly what these guys are telling you happened to them. Would you do it? I'd say yeah, but I'd have to know that the money was there. It wasn't going to take as much time away from my family as it did back then. But if I had the time and the money, it could be done again. The concept worked. And they're examples of how it worked. As far as whether it's the same now, I don't know if the kids are the same. I haven't been in the gym in 2 years. So I can't say that, the kids are different. I don't think they're different. I think they're probably very much the same, and the concepts will work again.
Now, Hartford has, I think, about 4 or 5 gyms now. I mean, unfortunately, they closed down the gym where I grew up, Salon Sports Center, and due to budget cuts as well too. But Charter Oak Boxing Academy came back strong. They opened a new gym.
It's slowly coming back. I think what hurt is there began to be other venues for young athletes to ply their skills. basketball and football were starting to become more popular, whereas in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, boxing was the way out.
We got to get it back because the thing is, before it was different than now. Now the kids stay more in the computers and all that stuff. Now it's different.
You want to be on Instagram, you want to be on Facebook, you want to be noticed, oh yeah, I'm boxing. But they don't realize how serious it is.
You can't be 100% dedicated. No smoking, no drinking, no sex when they tell you no sex. You ain't doing it.
We try to be them more sport. And we got kids like that, they want to do it. But more thing is the parents too got to help the kids too.
If you really want to be great and you don't want to get hurt, because that's another thing. This is a sport that if you're not 100% prepared, you're going to get hurt, man.
In the old days, the East Coast, all the way we're talking up until the 1990s, was the place to grow a professional fighter. Nowadays, unfortunately, I would say it's more on the West Coast.
But it's coming back. I think a couple of the, in my mind, the best young kids out there, Anthony Laureano is one of them that works with John Scully.
I think things are on the up and up. You have Anthony Laureano, who boxes out of Hartford. I believe he's 15-0 as a junior welterweight. Good, tough fighter. He kind of reminds me of some of the old school guys like Papa Figueroa and those type of guys. So we have some good up and coming guys. It's just the sheer number is not, what it was now.
Mark, so of course I want to become a world champion, but I want to be able to use maybe some of those opportunities or some of the money that I have to make more of a difference in our community.
I work with a good amateur, Damani Williams, who's a amateur middleweight. He's probably the most advanced fighter in the gym that I work with. But also I help train Artur Beterbiev, who's the IBF and WBC light heavyweight champion, so he would be the 6th world champion that I've trained or co-trained since I become a trainer.
Sherrod Collier, they call him the special one.
Sherrod Collier is a natural, can't miss prospect, decorated amateur, won the New England Golden Gloves a few times.
He's super talented. He has a bright future ahead of him.
We just need more exposure, and we just need more support, and we just need the whole community and everybody to get together and, show people that there's different ways, not only with boxing, but, just in sports, period.
Myquan Williams, great story, talented young kid, signed a professional contract when he was still going to Prince Tech, drew enough interest that he was signed by Jackie Callan.
It's marvelous, Myquan Williams hammering Orlando Felix. Look, very stiff.
So she saw enough in him to come from Detroit and sign him.
Said the one common denominator in boxing, modern boxing in Connecticut, the common denominator is composed of Luigi Computaro, John Scully, Tyrone Booz, Troy Wortham, Marlon Starling, and Kelvin Anderson. Every one of those fighters is a modern-day fighter. When you look at the time period in which they fought, every one of them is in the Hall of Fame, and every one of them was trained as the whole time they were a fighter by me. I'm not bragging, I'm just telling you that's a fact.
I guess it comes down to the will of the boxing coaches and people running programs and being able to do that. I can tell you that most of the gyms that exist today are against all odds and are without the help of people who need to step up.